My name is Noel or Noel. I'm a Gemini. I have two names, so feel free to use whichever one you want. I've submitted some written testimony, but I'm going to summarize it and pretty much start on page 2. BetaNYC is a nonprofit organization that has over 5,000 members. We started off as a meetup. In 2013, we wrote this thing called the People's Roadmap, where we organized our community to really figure out what are the things that we wanted to see carried forward from the Bloomberg administration into the next administration. And in that, we outlined 34 different policy proposals and ideas that we wanted to see developed. Some of that led to the creation of what we call now the Civic Innovation Lab and Fellows Program, which is incubated out of the Manhattan Borough President's Office. And some of the highlights of this particular program is that we've educated, mentored, and employed over 50 CUNY undergraduate students, teaching them open data. This is the very first open data boot camp that exists in New York City. We've created a suite of specialized open data tools for community boards. We've given to DoIT a number of suggestions on how communications technologies could be better utilized within community boards. We've done this through a very intense and ongoing research process, actively engaging community boards to ask them what are their technology needs, what are their data needs, what are the things that they would like to see accomplished over the next few years. This has led to DoIT actually submitting itself to the district needs process, so that way community boards have an opportunity to directly engage with community boards, which is something that they didn't have to do because they're not a service mandated agency. And so, getting DoIT to reform its practices has been a challenge. It has led to quite a bit of discovery and understanding exactly how DoIT works, and realizing that it's kind of frustrating. I can only imagine what it must be like to be a district manager for year in, year out, trying to ask the city's IT department to provide IT services for their agency. And while we love DoIT and we have great friends at DoIT, I have now come to realize that DoIT is really just a contracting vehicle for technology and not really a city IT department. It's unbelievable that there is one IT person for 59 agencies, that there is Joe, the amazing DoIT staff member who drives around to all 59 community board offices to do desktop tech support. I started off my world doing tech support. I can't imagine having a car in a city and more or less doing IT out of a car every single day. Just to continue, so what we've been able to accomplish over the last few years is to build a very simple, easy-to-use dashboard that visualizes 311 data. We've worked with Manhattan community boards to build a very simple template to track attendance. We've unified state and municipal data through this thing called SLAM, a state liquor authority map, which brings together sidewalk cafes, liquor licenses, and noise complaints, which is something that wasn't able to be easily done beforehand, and now community boards have this tool where they can see bad neighbors. Lastly, we've been able to build a tool called Tenants Map, which visualizes buildings that have unusual activity in regards to service level requests. These are service level requests that tend to lead to tenant displacement. And so we present a tool that enables this information to be easily visualized. We're now at the point where we've done 2 detailed reports on the technology needs of community boards, and I've summarized them here, and I don't need to repeat the excellent things that they've already said, but I do want to end on the explicit need for a CRM. Community boards are desperate for a tool that enables them to do the constituent services that they're doing right now. We're living in the 21st century, and it's absolutely inconceivable that these 59 agencies don't have someone or somebody that they can turn to help digitize and keep track of constituent complaints. My own community board has used these funds. I live in Brooklyn, CB1, apparently to lease a car to better get around the neighborhood. I don't think that's a judicious investment in for the needs that I have as a constituent, but apparently for them, that's great. I would like to be working with Right now, we have 11 community boards. We'd love to be able to work with more of them to really start the process, to start digitizing the workflow and the infrastructure that's needed so that way community boards can start servicing their districts in the 21st century, in the 21st century tools. There's actually several layers that aren't really being addressed within the city's government operations that you have all really articulated on. The first one is around stipulations in multiple data sets. So in our research, we've found that the SLA doesn't publish any of the stipulations that they get. So the State Liquor Authority doesn't publish the stipulations that community boards are sending up to the state, and then therefore community members like myself don't know what are the stipulations around a certain liquor license establishment and what are the kind of like the confines that they should be seen in. We actually have to send, I have to send a FOIL request up to Albany to find out what are the letters, or start asking the bar owner, or start rooting around cabinets. And what we've discovered through a very detailed report that we published earlier this year is that there are agency by agency, you can go through the different data sets and you will find that there are these kind of variances that aren't digitized anywhere. And I think it's kind of amazing that this small team of 19 has one IT person that's maintaining their database. And I was looking at their one data set that's up on the Open Data Portal, and it really only tells me like whether or not what's the status of the application, and that doesn't help me as a constituent think about it when I'm coming to a public meeting to really understand what's in the details. And that's really speaking to a much deeper issue, which kind of goes back to my initial statement around how DoIT is primarily an IT contracting services and not an actual IT building organization. We're living in the 21st century. I hope we can all recognize that, where governments have been building software very efficiently for about 10 years. I did this. Not ours, but yet I did that just a few floors up as part of the state Senate 10 years ago and helped build a CRM for the state Senate, which is still in place, which is significantly cheaper than the mainframe system that was put in place. We actually did a launch of nysenate.gov in this room using open source software. And something that has been at loggerheads inside of our city's operations is the fact that there isn't a very clear adoption of open source. There isn't building tools inside of the city to very quickly identify problems or opportunities where we can make minor modifications to these systems and help increase the usability. And so something that BetaNYC has been calling for is that New York City government needs to build a digital services department along the lines of the U.S. Federal's Digital Services Agency, or 18F, which are essentially the best and the brightest that live in this nation who want to build technology for government to make government more efficient and to send or be more efficient about how our tax dollars are spent. And it is surprising that for the last 10 years, both mayoral administrations have not taken up this particular issue to figure out how to build technology within city government more effectively. We have little tiny pinpricks. Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity, it has a civic service design studio. City Planning Labs is doing a great job of incorporating open source tools, so city planning officials have modern 21st century tools. We have Doris, they rolled out and repurposed some tool that was built in Oakland, but these are minor pinpricks at a $89 billion budget when we should be, instead of sending our tax dollars out to essentially buy technology from someplace else, we should be building it here and employing our local technologists to build technology for our city. So we're estimating to get the diversity of community boards that we have right now, there are multiple steps that need to happen. Some community boards are using email as their CRM. And so what we've proposed is a low-cost method to start and furthering our existing research, to turn around a solution that immediately meets their needs. It's essentially going to be a glorified online spreadsheet that helps us identify essentially the types of columns and the data that goes into those columns that will then help us better understand how to turn an open source CRM, something that we would be downloading from GitHub or anything like that, and turn that tool into the future perfect CRM. So the $10,000 is it is our most generous estimate with the 42.5 that has been offered to figure out how to essentially fit into the community board's budget to give them an immediate tool that helps us start this broader conversation. So yes and yes. Okay. I think one thing that was stated in the previous testimony is to really understand that when you deploy a CRM, it is at the underpinning of the workflows inside of an office. So yes, we can come up with a number that helps walk through all of these different steps to get and deploy a CRM that would be universally accessible to all 59 community boards that they can log in and that they can start using. There will be ongoing costs to figure out exactly how many features need to be developed, what type of support and training. Right now, BetaNYC tries to do one training per month to teach community boards how to use BoardStat, SLAM, and a bunch of other existing tools that DOB has produced and other city agencies have produced. And that's time intensive to do those types of trainings. It's also time intensive to be thinking about what are the updates and improvements. So the quick answer to your questions are yes, and love to figure out exactly what those numbers look like. But there will still need to be dedicated funding for training, support, improvements, because community boards have, as you know, have a very limited budget for their current operations, and yet the needs of every single community board that we've talked to is only growing exponentially. Every single time an agency decides to go paperless, they put the burden on the community board to print out the paper, to essentially ensure that the community is informed of what's going on. We had a conversation a few years ago when DOB was rebuilding their thing, or planning was rebuilding their thing, and they were like, oh, community boards, we're going to save you paper. And we started looking at the numbers for just Manhattan Community Board 1, and it's just like, you guys are going to need to buy more and more toner cartridges, like get a better printer copier. Like their needs are going up when other agencies say that they're trying to save money. And so this is an ongoing conversation that you and your predecessors all need to understand, that community boards need dedicated technology resources across the board.